Hey, welcome back to the Devy to Dynasty YouTube channel. I'm Brandon Lejeune, host of the Devy Deep Dive podcast and creator of the Devy Dashboard. Again, Corey Pereira is back with me on the channel, and we are going to be talking sleepers. How you doing tonight, Corey?
I'm doing great, man. Looking forward to maybe picking some guys out of the bargain bin, and hopefully we can find some value here.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good point because this is the bargain bin, right? Our sleepers. We're each going to talk about three guys tonight, and these are guys that you can get way, way late in startup C2C drafts. They could be on your waiver wire on your existing C2C league, so you might want to check fan tracks when those supplemental drafts roll around. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about 6 players that are going to be players that you're going to be able to get really, really cheap, maybe draft them, like I said, off the waiver wire. Before we get started, though, I did want to remind everyone I got a great event coming up on May 22nd called the Devy Summit. It's going to be a big C2C and Devy event. We're going to have a lot of great guests. We're going to be raising money for the Ukrainian families that have been displaced through the war. So again, that is on May 22nd. So be sure to subscribe to this channel. There will be a live 6-hour feed on this channel. So if you are a Devy junkie, a C2C junkie, or if you're just learning, it's going to be all about that as well. So I hope to see you there. So yeah, so the big question is like, what's a sleeper, right? I think Corey just kind of said it very simply. You're going to the bargain bin, right? There's nothing better when you're in dynasty, when you're in fantasy, when you get a sleeper, man. When you got a guy that you can claim that you're the first one who found them, you're the one who was first on the train. We all love it. If you're on Twitter, everyone loves to be, the driver of the train. Nobody wants to be on the caboose, right? So we're going to give you 6 names today that I think could have a potential to see an increase of value this year. So I'm excited to hear what Corey comes up with. I'm going to start us off tonight. I'm going to talk about an Oklahoma wide receiver, Jalil Farooq. 6'1", 203 pounds. He is a 4-star prospect, 21st ranked in the composite for 24/7 Sports. He got offers from Bama and Clemson. Now he is going to be a sophomore this year. He did not get on the field much at all last year at Oklahoma. He only had 4 receptions for 69 yards. In fact, I recorded them and checked them out. I mean, it's all we have to go. But his high school film was pretty impressive. But again, we are talking about opportunity here. When you talk about sleepers, vacated production is important. What opportunity these players have to get on the field. And I think Farooq has a great opportunity to get on the field. Now, look, there's been a lot of changes happening in Oklahoma. Lots of changes this year. New coaching staff. Lincoln Riley's out. Khalid Williams hit the transfer portal. He's in USC. We've got Gabriel Dillon, Dylan Gabriel, I'm rather, coming in. He is going to be obviously the QB this year. And he was out last year, but in the previous years, the guy has been able to throw the ball. Their backfield is not going to be, I think, super productive this year. So I think the passing game for Oklahoma with Dillon throwing the ball is going to have to be, where the Oklahoma team is going to win. And what I've seen from his high school film, I really like. But let's look at his depth chart coming up for this year. I mean, Marvin Mims is a player that actually Corey spoke about on a previous show that we recorded, as a sell, right? So like, who else is on this roster? So the depth chart right now heading into spring is Theo Weiss. I mean, are we tired to talking about Theo Weiss? I mean, he's not really, I think, on anyone's Devy radar right now. Stoops is usually playing in the slot, but other than that, it is a wide open depth chart. Farooq, played primarily outside last year. So he only played in the slot like 7% of his snaps. I think he had like 90 or 100 snaps, something like that. So they have a new offensive coordinator. Jeff Levy's coming over from Ole Miss. I think they're going to have a passing attack, and I'm excited. I mean, I went back and watched his high school film on all these guys that I have watched that we're going to talk about tonight. I really have gone back and watched extensively their film because there's not a lot of film on these players as sleepers in this particular show. So there's not going to be a lot of production that we've seen on the college level. So they're all kind of, like you said, bargain bin dart throws. But nonetheless, again, looking at a vacated opportunity, Farooq is somebody that I'm pretty interested in. I think he flashed a little bit last year, and I like what I saw in his high school film. So I think he has the ability this time next year. We could be talking about he could be the wide receiver 2 possibly on that team. So I think he's a really cheap, deep stash that you could get relatively cheap.
No, I like that. And like you were talking about the depth chart, Jadon's gone now, gone to Arkansas to be the guy there, or try to be the guy there.
Yep.
Marvin was my sell. He's not a guy who I think is a true wide receiver one. There's room for someone to step up there, someone with like Jalil Farooq with the size and the commanding presence, and if someone on the outside. So I really do like that call. I'm going to head over to TCU for my guy. And now we all know Zach Evans transferred out. He's heading over to Ole Miss. And I'm going to be talking about his backup in Kendre Miller. I'm not too sure how to say it. But this is a 6-foot guy, 214-pound, 3-star athlete. He's actually thought of as an outside linebacker as well as a recruit. So he's got a little bit of versatility there, I guess. He's been backing up Evans for the last 2 years, but now it looks like it could be his chance to step into the lead role with Evans moving on. And he looked pretty good in his role behind Evans for the past 2 years. He's averaged over 7 yards per carry in both years, including 7.5 this past year, which was actually higher than Evans, who we all love, obviously. Mm-hmm. And you might say, of course, the backup, you should have more chances, but that was, or less chances, so his yard per carry is going to look better. But that wasn't really the case last year. With Evans in and out of the lineup, he was having weird issues where he didn't want to play or whatever. He actually saw a fairly similar workload. He had 83 attempts to Zach Evans' 92 attempts, so it was pretty close. But he produced more touchdowns than Evans. He forced more missed tackles. He ended up with a higher backfield dominant rating, which is a measure of how much a player dominated the production coming out of the backfield. He was essentially TCU's most efficient back. And it goes beyond that. He had 5.06 yards after contact last year, which according to PFF was the highest in the country at running back. 67% of his yards actually came after contact, which is actually a fairly high amount. And it doesn't stop there either, not just with power. Now we're talking about speed. He also had 60.5% of his yards come on breakaway runs, which was third in the country. He had 15% of his runs go for 10 yards or more. So this guy was showing big playability, power, elusiveness as well with the missed tackles, all at a better rate than Zach Evans was last year, who we all love as a top first-round pick, at right at the bottom, early second-round pick, is a guy we all love right now. So, TCU brings in Sonny Dykes, head coach from SMU, who had like a top 15 offense for the past 3 years or so, a very high-octane offense, which should give Miller a solid amount of work. He isn't really known for his running back production, I would say. He's been operating more of a high-powered passing offense. But still, he's good. He still gives solid work to his running backs. So I still think as long as with Kendre Miller's efficiency as well, that he should maintain a good role. And he's already getting really good reviews out of camp. He's running with the ones. Everybody says he looks great. He's kind of a sneaky, somewhat a trendy name right now through the community. I know a lot of guys in the industry are starting to talk about him a little bit, but his buzz is still fairly low out there. There's not a lot of guys talking about him right now. So I like him. I'm excited to see what he's going to do in this offense. And I want to see him be the lead dog this year and see if he can handle it.
Hey man, I'm impressed, man. You came to bat with your stats. I mean, you just firing out the stats.
Oh man,
yeah, you did your homework. I love it.
He's a guy that I've done a lot of homework on. He's a guy that I really like. So I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not the first guy on him. There's a guy out there. I wish I could remember his name right now. That put me on him at first. I used him as a DFS play last year for a lot of when Zach Evans was out and stuff like that, and I just became impressed and kind of enamored. So now I kind of really dug into him and found all this stuff. So
that's good. I like it, man. I mean, he looked pretty good. I was recording some of his all 22 film last week. Nice. I was going to have a little surprise for you on here maybe, but we'll see.
Nice.
All right. My second player, I'm going deep. I'm going with an incoming freshman. I kind of went super deep on this, a guy that not a lot of people I've even heard talk about, but I've done some research on. His name is Andrew Paul. He is a running back headed to Georgia. 3-star prospect, 42nd ranked overall in the 24/7 composite. And you're probably like, sleeper. I mean, this guy's like been asleep. He's in a coma. Well, he's 5'11", 220 pounds. And the Georgia community and the Georgia coaching staff has been raving about this kid. Comes out of high school. I mean, listen to these stats that he had in high school. 271 rush attempts. This is his senior year. 2,600 yards, averaged 9 yards a carry, and scored 41 touchdowns. He also caught 14 balls for 208 yards and 3 scores. So played in Texas. All right. But first off, his impressiveness with his size alone at 5'11", 220. He's already got that perfect size coming into college. But I don't know, Corey, if you've seen this kid's high school film, I'm going to put it out on the Devy dashboard for everybody. This kid looks really good, man. I mean, he's got really good breakaway speed, but man, he's got the ability to break tackles. Something that like excites me with his size is contact balance. he's a high character kid. They talk about, just he's smart as a whip and picks up the playbook or whatever. But listen, here's the opportunity. It's a Georgia running back, right? So this is a guy that you're going to have to wait on. Branson Robinson is what, is the apple of every Devy eye right now. He's like one of the top running backs that have come in to the class. So everyone's thinking Branson Robinson is going to get the run, and most likely he will when his time is called. But it's going to be Kendall Milton. Kenny McIntosh this year is probably going to get the majority of the run this year in Georgia. Dejon Edwards is another player who might get sprinkled in, and we might see Branson Robinson. But this is a guy that you can keep your eye on, write his name down, Andrew Paul. If you're going into a C2C startup, you're going into a supplemental draft, and let's not kid ourselves. We just did a supplemental draft, even on the Devy dashboard, with a bunch of great Devy minds. After round 10 of 15 round draft, you're just picking players at this point. So this is a guy that you could really write his name down, Andrew Paul. Do some research on him. Go watch his huddle film. He's certainly impressive. So I'm going to give you a super deep sleeper here for my second pick to talk about tonight. But I think I'm going to be targeting him in all my supplemental drafts coming up in my C2C leagues and my startups as well.
I love it. Talking about one of my Georgia Bulldogs, I looked into him a little bit as well, especially when he joined Georgia. And he had a really interesting recruitment because it was fairly quiet for a long time. And then all of a sudden, he started getting all this attention and all these guys looking at him, all these big major programs, and ended up going to a RBU pretty much in Georgia. So there was obviously something there. Something was happening. And I loved what I saw. He was nimble for a big guy, a lot of power. And really, going to Georgia, maybe all you're going to need is an injury somewhere, and maybe he can start working his way up. Maybe he ends up being more ready than Branson. Who knows? You never know. You take a running back going to Georgia though. So I like that call.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm going to head over to Boston College, talk about a quarterback there by the name of Phil Jurkovec, a guy that everybody forgot about a little bit. He was kind of high on some people's boards very early on. He was a borderline 5-star prospect. He was a number 4 dual threat quarterback in 2018. He ended up committing to Notre Dame. Transferred to Boston College in his sophomore year after not getting much playing time there. Became the immediate starter for the Eagles. He actually played pretty well in his first year. It wasn't perfect for that in Boston's run-heavy attack, but he threw for 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. It was a solid showing for a guy that hadn't played much of quarterback at the college level yet. And he had multiple impressive showings in that year as well against number 1 Clemson, number 12 UNC, and number 2 Notre Dame that year. He threw for an average of almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns a game, and all those games were essentially 1 possession losses. So he was keeping the team in these games. So you love to see that. Entering 2021, the arrow was pointing up for Jurkovec. He started out really hot, 300-yard game, 3 touchdowns. He was the buzz after week 1, and then he pretty much had his whole season derailed in week 2 when he messed up his hand, and he was supposed to keep him out all year. Somehow he managed to come back for the final 3 games. He really shouldn't have. You could tell he wasn't healthy or confident in the hand at all. It really affected his play. And it's really why some of the community is pretty down on him entering this year. I mean, but there was some context there to keep in mind. He's a big guy. He's going to come back fully healthy in 2022 now. He gets a return of his favorite target in Zay Flowers, who's also good and returns a strong run game coming from Boston College as well. 225 pounds, which is, you love to see that size. Impressive arm, can make these throws off platform, can move around in the pocket, has some sneaky upside as a rusher as well. I mean, last year alone, he ran for 332 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's not like someone who has a ton of speed or anything like that. There's kind of been a running comp that I've been running with for all these years. I kind of see the good and the bad of this comp in him. But I've been running with the comp of Carson Wentz, who I know a lot of people don't like that much, but this is a guy who is an NFL quarterback. He was a top 2 selection in the NFL draft. He played well enough in spots to be considered an MVP candidate at times. So the flash has been there. And those are the same kind of flashes that I see with Jurkovec, who kind of has that same kind of crazy arm, that mobility in the pocket. I see some of the bad stuff too, slightly messy footwork, or sometimes thinking he can get away with a play that he shouldn't be thinking of. But he just believes in himself that much. I think, we'll see a more healthy, a more matured guy this year. And I think he could be a sneaky climber in this class, which really needs a few more quarterbacks to consider right now. Everybody's trying to guess after the first 2 guys who these quarterbacks are going to be. So I think the NFL could fall in love with his tools.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really nice because I don't know. I feel like the 2023 QB class is pretty weak.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speculative players, but hey, listen, Zach Wilson, right? I mean, Kenny Pickett. Every year, there's a guy that kind of emerges who's kind of on the outskirts, maybe not, has a
This is
great
the bargain
season.
bin.
Yeah, that's the bargain bin, right? So you can probably get him really cheap too. Again, all right. So my third player, I'm going back again to the freshman class, incoming class, and this is a guy that I just fell in love with his film, watching it as I continue to prepare notes and player profiles for the Devy dashboard, and that is Oscar Delp. He is the second ranked tight end coming into the class this year. 6'5", 224 pounds. So you might be saying 224 pounds. Well, if you watch his huddle film, and I think I watched every one of them because I couldn't stop watching it, but this dude is all over the field when they play. I mean, he's lined up in the slot, wide receiver. He did wildcat. I mean, he is all over the place. He is an athlete, true and true, but he was 4-star prospect, got offers from Bama, Michigan, Florida. And I'm just so impressed with, he's going to Georgia, right? So I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that before. So he's going to have to wait, right? It is the Bowers show right now, and rightfully so. But so we got 2 more years of Bowers, but this guy again might get himself on the field because he played in high school a lot out wide. And there's 2 words that I describe when I watch his film: is athletic and his defensive manipulation. And there's nothing more than I like in a guy who's running routes, that he sets guys up. And, there was guys falling over with the way this guy ran routes. Like I said, he's a versatile player. Tough to get to the ground, even at 225. I mean, guys were just bouncing off him. I know he was bigger and stronger than a lot of the kids he was probably playing with nonetheless. And what I also saw is he was pancake blocking people all the time, and the effort this guy gave on the line. Now, he's undersized as a tight end, as a natural tight end, but in Dynasty, do we really want the guys that can catch the ball anyway? And this guy might end up being some sort of versatile slot kind of tight end, kind of like Pitts, who probably doesn't line up on the line and do a whole lot of blocking, but a guy who can get down the field and make plays. And I see Delp as a guy who can certainly do that. He had 59 receptions, 923 yards last year as a senior with 8 TDs, averaged 83 yards a game. But I think he's going to be worth the wait. I think this is a deep sleeper show. And again, if you're in a startup in your C2C, or if you're doing a supplemental draft, this is a guy that I think might be worth taking. Now, this time last year, remember, nobody even thought Bowers was going to be anything. A tight end playing in Georgia, people would be like, well, what are you kidding me? Like, no thanks, right? Well, that may have changed now with Bowers, and we see how exciting he is. This guy looks like Bowers too. He's got that vertical ability that we see Bowers all over the field. And I think the Georgia's got some, with Pickens going to the draft and Burton headed to Bama. I mean, I think there's some opportunity for him to get on the field in spring reports. People are excited that he is, going to be part of the team this fall. So super deeper guy. But again, I'm taking Oscar Delp early. We're all looking the tight ends. People that fade tight ends, I get it. But if you can get a Brock Bowers on your roster, take a shot early with this guy in your upcoming drafts. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I love it. 2 Bulldogs on the list. You're just treating me so nice today. I love it.
Yeah.
And you talked about the size. Not something I'm worried about either. At 225 pounds, it's not even that small for a prospect coming in at tight ends. I was just looking at this the other day too. Guys like TJ Hawkinson, Bowers himself, George Kittle, they all came in under like 220 pounds. They were all in a 210 range. Something. Bowers was like 205 last year. So we're talking about these guys put on weight in college. These tight ends. So once I get into these strength and conditioning programs at a different level, it's all up from there. But I'm actually going to head over to LSU for my last guy. I'm going to talk about a wide receiver over there. Sophomore, was a freshman last year. Goes by the name of MALIK NABERS. Last year when Butte went down, a lot of wide receivers had to step up, including a lot of freshmen from that class. MALIK NABERS was one of those guys. He was a 6'1", 190-pound, 4-star recruit. He really only saw 10 targets through week 6, but ended up seeing 36 over the last 7 games after Butte went down. Ended up finishing 4th on the team in yards. And, it was a weird spread out offense last year. He actually ended up finishing within 100 yards of the leading receiver, and the leading receiver was Butte, who only played in 6 games last year. So it was actually fairly productive for them and consistent for them. He had 14.8 yards per reception, which led the team. Was good enough to finish 10th in the entire SEC. He actually earned a spot on the All SEC freshman team for his play through the last half of the season there. So you'll have to see that. Now entering 2022, we should see Boutte return to the lineup, but there's also a little bit of mystery behind that. Him needing the second surgery this offseason to clean some stuff out. Now he's out until summer at the earliest. So who knows? And this is a guy who has a lot of NFL aspirations. If they're a shitty team, he could opt out halfway through the season or something, find some reason not to play. So who knows? Malik Nabers could end up seeing a lot of time. A lot of these young guys could end up seeing a lot of time. And, LSU goes under a new head coaching change as well. But there isn't a ton of loyalty with this whole change. Kind of remains to be seen how the pecking order is going to break up. Malik has already been getting some buzz in camp with Boutte out. So you'll have to hear that. He just needs to prove himself a little bit, and he could maybe earn a starting role coming out of camp. If Boutte continues to miss time for whatever reason, we might have found a gem on our hands. LSU has had some of the best track record at putting wide receiver talent into the NFL. Arguably right now, the two top dynasty wide receivers are Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, who are LSU. So, we're talking about a place that's putting them in the NFL at a high rate right now. So maybe with a little luck, Nabers could end up being that next guy.
Yeah, that whole, you're so right with the depth chart on that. It's a lot of fun things can happen there. So, all right, man. Well, those are our 6, sleepers for you guys. I suggest you do some research on them and check them out. But Corey, again, thank you so much for jumping on the channel. Always enjoyed talking Devy C2C with you, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Brandon. Anytime.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.